We'll deal with advanced fighters, FFA and J-20, and following on to that, how will you handle these emerging threats with the current F-22 force structure and considering the slowdown in F-35, and do you need a longer range air-to-air missile? General Welsh, do you want to tackle that subject first?
Yeah, there's no way to win in this answer. If I saw long enough, will you leave? I really think that this is it's a great question because there is no answer that's realistic. Yes, we should deal with all those things. The reality is, I'm not sure we can. We have to make sure we understand the real threat. I don't know what the actual capability of either of those new stealth platforms rolled out by either Russia or China is. Obviously, they're moving in the right direction by rolling something out. It took us a long time to get from rollout to where we are today, so I suspect it will take them at least that long, if not longer. I know that people can say that's a dangerous assumption, but you have to make assumptions when you're prioritizing resources. I think that the long-range missile is something we do need to worry about and we need to acquire. I believe we have to make sure that the radars we put on whatever fighters we're flying are capable of operating in today's environment and surviving and killing in today's environment. I think that the force structure mix that we have in the future is going to have to be based on the realities of today. I think we need fifth generation capability. I don't think we can afford on 100% of our fleet to be fifth generation in the near term. And so doing all those things is going to be very, very difficult. And I think prioritizing is going to be the trick. And the driving force shouldn't be the European theater. I'll leave it that way. I believe the Pacific theater ought to drive the prioritization to do it.
I think the easy way to do it, the easy way to win, is prevent an enemy from being allowed to take off. So you, in that, you can write the thesis on that. First of all, none of us ever want to go into conflict. And so preventing an enemy from taking off means the enemy doesn't have a reason to take off, which means our political strategy has prevented conflict. And so if we get to conflict, then the easiest way to stop an enemy from being a viable force is don't allow them to take off. Don't allow them to sail out, exhibit, if you will, anti-access from our end, like we've been capable of doing in the past. If they take off, though, they're going to face the most formidable threat that they will ever face. And, those who have been to this a couple times remember two symposiums ago, I said, the most feared word an enemy pilot will ever get is clear for takeoff if they have to face our forces in the air, both fourth and fifth generation. And so if they do get airborne and they come against us, then there's several things that are very important. One is our ability to have communication between our strategic and operational assets down to our tactical platforms. And so that gets into 24th Air Force's regime, and it gets into our global regime to have a link that enables us to be able to pass data appropriately within all of our systems so that our tactical aviators and our C2 systems have got a very clear picture of who is friend and who is foe. And then as theater commanders, we've got to have the right capability to have the rules of engagement so simple and clear that anyone in the kill chain knows exactly when and where and what they are authorized to do, such that we can very rapidly clean up the air picture and then allow either surface or naval surface combats to do their job as we do this in integration. As General Welsh said, and as we all know, we're not going to be able to outnumber people anymore. Not just the United States, but our allies, because our air forces are very expensive, and so we've got to ensure that what we've got works all the time. I'm very concerned about the numbers that we've got because the enemy is making missiles faster than we make anything. And so if you are going to be outnumbered, you've got to have the technology, the rules of engagement, and the capability to counter the rapid growth. And, I talked about China's growth. There are other nations that are growing just as fast. And so it's very important that the numbers we've got, we can maintain them. As General Fraser said, we can modernize them, particularly in our F-22 fleet. Small numbers there. All of you know we just lost an F-22 a couple months ago. And so when you've got a national treasure and you lose one, and you lose that aviator involved in the platform, that really hurts. And so we've got to ensure that we can train and we can do our business properly and we can maintain the scarce numbers that we've got in our fifth generation capability. And then we've got to be able to do this in concert with our allies. I just came from Anderson Air Force Base in Guam, where we have just kicked off Cope North, which is a bilateral event between us and the Japanese, where we are working together, both in command and control, in integration, at the planning levels, and then certainly in the execution levels between our U.S. Air Force, our Navy, and the JASCAF in this case. And so throughout the world, our ability to exercise in a bilateral, multilateral environment remains very, very important. Yet, frankly, General Borser would tell you this if he could. Our ability to do that in small numbers or larger numbers is very important. And certainly our Air Commandos do some tremendous work behind the scenes that would allow us to perhaps not get to number one, which is maybe never having a fight. So, thanks. Look at Donnie's smiling face.